The classic story of adultery. Modern men are much more serious about choosing a suit or a car than they are about choosing a wife. As a result, more and more marriages end in divorce, and their children grow up to be unhappy people. I don't remember where I read that expression, but it is completely true. Most divorces these days are caused by adultery on the part of one of the spouses. And if the reason for men's infidelity, which everyone condemns, especially women, is generally understandable, the dog has not had enough of sex. But female adultery is not universally condemned and is often justified by the same women. What makes a woman cheat? The excuses are plentiful. Husband, a tyrant. He does not see me as a woman, not loving, not satisfied in an intimate sense, and so on. The reason, lack of love, lack of butterflies in the stomach. When a woman goes to cheat, her brain tends to shut down. She doesn't think about the consequences and lives only by her feelings and emotions. In my opinion, female infidelity is much scarier than male infidelity. An unfaithful woman destroys everything. The family, the souls of her children, her husband, her parents, and above all her own soul. All betrayals have one thing in common: sooner or later they will be found out. And most adultery ends the same way. It is very rare to be able to build something new. It's on the grief of once abandoned loved ones, new happiness is almost impossible to create. And so after a while, the second stage of infidelity begins. Attempt to return to the family. I love only you. I was a fool. I can't do without you and the children. The endings here are different. Some accept the prodigal wife, some don't. But regardless of the ending, there will never be happiness in such a family. I married the girl I loved in my 20s. She was my age, and the family life to come seemed clear and unclouded to me. Our love affair was developing, following all the canons of the genre. We met at a friend's birthday party, dated for almost a year, and then got married. She was my first woman I fell in love with, as they say, head over heels. When my parents expressed doubts about us getting married, I said I would pack my bags and just go to her. So we got married. Well, a year later, a son was born, and 3 years later, a daughter. I really loved Olga. That was my wife's name. Books over the years, the feeling grew stronger and stronger. I had no reason to suspect her of cheating because she never gave a reason. I trusted her completely without humiliating her with jealousy. Like everyone else, we sometimes quarreled, but a quarrel did not turn into a scandal. We quickly found common ground and made peace. We lived like that for 17 years. And then everything changed for the worse. Olga suddenly became irritable and started scandals over nothing. She dramatically changed her appearance, dyeing her hair brunette, knowing very well that I never liked this type of woman. She acquired new things and perfume. My wife began to regularly stay late at work, explaining it with far-fetched reasons. Our intimate life came to a grinding halt. Such changes in family life could not just happen. I started to think about it and came to the conclusion that it all started after the reunion. So something happened at that reunion that changed my wife so much. I knew some of her classmates, so I decided to ask them carefully about that reunion. Open frame. I learned many interesting things about my wife. It turns out that in the 10th grade, Olga was in love with a classmate of hers, Sasha. He was quite a handsome boy and was very popular with his classmates. After school, life separated them. He left to study in another city, married the daughter of a factory director, and had a child there. Olga grieved, then married me. They existed in parallel in different cities until Sasha was transferred to our city, and they met at that unfortunate reunion. They met, and the old love flared up again. As all in all, a rather banal situation, which occurs very often. And here we go. They slept together that night, and they couldn't stop. Olga was looking for any reason to be with him, isn't to be with her lover. She made up excuses that would make any secret agent jealous. I already knew the name and address of Olga's lover. Fiction was just a small thing to find lovers on the hot stuff and close the subject. I must say that I felt very upset. In addition to my love for Olga, a feeling of uneasiness began to mingle. Knowing that my wife was being betrayed by another man did not leave me with any prospect for a future life together with her. But still, before I made a final decision about the fate of our family, I decided to talk to my wife first. I asked her directly about the lover. As in response, she threw a huge scandal with hysteria, accusing me of all sins and most importantly of his broken life. The leitmotif of the scandal. I'm a scumbag not only ruined her life, but I dared to question her honesty. Oh women, your name is treachery. I waited another couple of days and one evening, when my beloved, once again delayed at work, arrived at the address where her Sasha lived. He opened the door himself, and when I asked him where Olga was, he nodded toward the kitchen. Olga was sitting with one leg tucked up on a stool, smoking. When she saw me, she somehow flinched and said angrily, "Why did you come? I love him," just like that, without any preamble. Basically, it was all clear to me. But he took one last shot and tried to remind her about the kids. But she said the kids would stay with her and her new lover, but let them stay with me for a while they get their lives together. I no longer had the energy or desire to continue the conversation. I told my wife that I would not talk about it anymore, that our conversation was the last and that I would file for divorce myself. Olga turned away to the window, letting me know that our conversation was over. I silently left the apartment, went down the stairs, opened the door of the staircase, and went out into the street. It was drizzling rain, and I lifted my collar and walked along the wet houses. I remember that evening well, the last evening when I was still married to Olga. My heart and soul ached. Maybe I shouldn't have given up. Maybe I should have fought for my wife, tried to win her back, but something told me that all in vain. She would not return. In front of me again stood her empty, indifferent eyes, the eyes of a stranger. I felt so unbearably bad that I bit down on the sleeve of my coat so as not to howl in despair. When I got home, I explained to my children that my mother had gone on a long business trip. I dared not tell my children the truth, though I knew that one day it will have to do. But my son asked me, "Mom left for another husband." I nodded. He hugged me, and we sat like that half the night. The next day, I filed for divorce. 2 months went by. There was still some red tape going on with the divorce. We were given time to reconcile. Children live with me. Olga all this time was in no hurry to make them happy with a new father. And then the classics of the genre. One evening, my ex-wife came to me. She announced to me that she had left her Sasha because, in her words, she realized that she had never loved anyone but me. I'm sorry. I'm a bastard and a bitch. I'll do what you want with me, but just don't drive me away, she said. Jackson, I listened silently to her moaning and explained that her former husband had died there that night in her lover's apartment. I also said that I would not prevent her from seeing her children, but that I would never live with her. Olga looked at me with eyes inflamed with tears. In them, is it so? I saw both the pain of remorse and former love. Out of my last strength, I managed to hold myself together, and Olga left. That same evening she took pills, trying to commit suicide. But a neighbor found her and called an ambulance. Olga was saved. Her parents took her from the hospital and took her to their home. Several times she called me and asked me to forgive her. Her mother came to my office just as she tried to convince me to forgive Olga. But I was still adamant, though my heart and soul ached in a way that was impossible to express. I still loved her and realized that it would never be able to love anyone like that again. Olga now lives with her parents. She regularly visits her children, tries to establish some kind of relationship with me, hoping that I will eventually forgive her and we will be together. Maybe I would forgive her if I didn't love her so much.